Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to cover some of what experts are saying about Bryan Kohberger. There was a Dr. Phil special this past week on Friday, and a couple experts got on talking about this alleged killer. And so we're going to be diving into what we know at this time. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. So there was a Dr. Phil special this past week about the Idaho 4 case. As we know, this true crime story has truly been in the national headlines for the longest time, at least until Bryan Kohberger was caught. And then it's lost a little momentum, but we are finding out so much more about Bryan Kohberger. And so some experts were on Dr. Phil, which was a special that they were running this past Friday, where experts were speculating about Bryan Kohberger. And so we're going to dive into what we are hearing about this. And so the suspect, Bryan Kohberger, these experts are saying that he may have left behind a calling card, something that is tied to him, to show he was at the scene of this grisly incident in Moscow, Idaho. And so the brutality of this crime, they say, suggests that he possibly has done this before. Maybe not of this magnitude, but these four may not have been his first. Granted, whoever the first was of these four would be his first, but they're saying no. He may have done this before. But here is the truth, my friends. We have to take all of this with a grain of salt. Is that not a fair statement? Because so many people are, number one, giving their input. Number two, just diving really deep into this every single which way they can. I've not done a piece of content on Kohberger or the Idaho Force in almost a week, because there were no big developments. Granted, I can just rehash things, but this story caught my attention for a number of different reasons. All along, I truly believe, no, I don't think he did this again. But to get some others' take on it, that makes it a little bit different, because these are so-called experts, right? And so when they did this Dr. Phil special, that caught my attention, number one. Number two, some of what they were sharing caught my attention as well. And so that is some of the things that really grabbed me, especially that they're saying that maybe he left this sheath behind as his calling card. And so they had this Dr. Phil special on this past Friday where they were kind of like speculating about this empty knife sheath that was left behind in the rooms where Kaylee, Goncalves, and Madison, Mogen were, where this incident occurred on November 13th. You see, the lifelong best friends, they have been together for a long time, since they were little girls. I've even shown images of them two together when they were like less than 12 years old. They were so young. So they've known each other for a very long time. And so they did this way in their beds in the early morning hours of November 13th, along with their roommate, Xana Canoodle, and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, who was staying over that night. We don't even know if he was planning on spending the full night or if he had to get back to the fraternity by the morning. We don't even know all of that, right? But one former FBI agent, He was a special agent. He was on Dr. Phil, Jonathan Gilliam, and he said he thinks investigators will find the knife because, similar to Kohberger's car, it was part of his operational tools. That's what he had shared. Now, trial attorney Mercedes Colwin, she agreed that they will eventually find the knife and then suggested that the sheath may have been left at the crime scene intentionally. She said it could be, it's almost as if, and we've seen this with other killers, it's their calling card. I got this. That's what she said during the Dr. Phil special. And she continues, especially if you think you're smarter than everybody else. And he had gloves. At least that's what's presumed, that he had gloves. He tried to cover himself, did something to dispose of the clothing. If he is in fact the killer, then of course this is something that could have just been a calling card and left it there. Saying that he might have done this on purpose. And so the group of experts convened on the show discussed the possibility that this may not have been Kohberger's first time doing such a thing, which would potentially make the PhD criminal justice student a serial K. Now, it has been thrown around multiple times. I've not run with it at all, and I'm not running with that theory right now about him being a possible serial K. And when I say serial, I mean K-ill-ler. Hopefully that works. I don't know. But I don't think that. I think this was actually kind of sloppy, as other experts have said. So that's my thought in this process. Now, Gilliam, he said that he felt the murder suspect may have done this before and in a similar fashion. He says, I think he's killed before, most likely. Not 4 people, but I think he's probably stalked and potentially killed females before. Colwin added, this is Mercedes, if he's the killer, the viciousness, the brutality, and the butchering of these 4 individuals, I can't imagine this is the first time if he is indeed the killer. Now, my friends, let me know in the comments if you think he's done this before. I normally don't like to run with these type of theories, but I want to know your thoughts on this because we are covering this topic on whether he did this before. So I want you to put it in the comments whether you think he's done this before. Personally, my vote is no. I do not think he's done this. Some experts are saying that it looks like he might have done this before. And so maybe you've heard of forensics expert Joseph Scott. He added that while he thought it could be his first time doing this, he believes Kohberger certainly was not the first time that he tried to get away with something wrong. When asked if he thought it was Kohberger's first murder, he responded, murder? Possibly bad act? No. That is what forensics expert Joseph Scott had to say. If you're on Twitter, if you follow true crime quite a bit, you've seen him quite a bit in different editorials and different videos. Now, Kohberger, he's a doctoral student studying criminal justice at Washington State University, located only less than 10 miles from the University of Idaho. Now, he's only been charged with 4 counts of first degree, which is a big friggin' deal, and 1 count of felony burglary in this heinous crime. So he is alleged to be the perp. He still gets his day in court, and I think that it's important. Now, you see, his arrest on December 30th, this came after a 7-week nationwide manhunt that captivated America. It was technically 2 days before 7 full weeks, or 1 day before 7 full weeks. 1 day before 7 full weeks? And so we do not know a motive for this. We do not know any link between Kohberger and the victims. None of that has either not been established or just has not been shared with us by law enforcement. Again, there is a gag order on this case. So I think that it's extremely important that we are careful. And so experts, they were trying to explain how the DNA that was covered in on this knife case would help Bryan Kohberger's defense. And so the suspect may have left a knife sheath, which is what you see on your screen. He may have left this at the crime scene as part of a move on purpose to leave his moniker, if that's the way you pronounce that, some would say, right? But his calling card, as one of the experts had said. But David Wilson, a criminology professor at Birmingham City University in the UK, he suggested that the accused perp, Bryan Kohberger, was too smart to leave behind any evidence, and that he may have done so as a tactic to pull the perfect crime. We've talked about that multiple times, have we not? About maybe he was trying to pull that perfect crime and it didn't quite go his way. Because I personally believe that in the house, it did not go as smooth as he was expecting. And so this criminology professor, he said that much of the evidence against Kohberger could be framed as coincidental by the defense. Could that help his way out of this? But this DNA, well, this guy even says that including the DNA that was found on the knife sheath, which he said transfers very easily between people and objects. Could he have been set up? They were tailing him. Hard to say he could have possibly been set up, considering that his phone pinged so many times. So people are throwing that out there. Come on, where's the good theory behind being set up? People have tried to tie that Pullman, Washington incident shortly after this incident, where there was a SUI side of it, right? Where the SWAT team had to go on campus or off-campus apartment. I reported on it. And some people have tried to tie those two. I'm not buying that. You just have to be careful what you buy into. I get we want to play theories. I try to be a little careful about those theory things. But this is where we have to be careful as well. And that's where we're trying to figure out, do they have enough to put this guy away if he is truly the guy? And so it has been speculated that Kohberger left enough evidence at the scene to prompt his arrest. That's what a lot of people do believe, but not enough to actually convict them, which is exactly what I'm saying. Like, do they have enough to convict this guy without a shadow of a doubt? This is where it's key, because the defense is going to come in prepared. Without a doubt, we better be ready for that, right? Because at the end of the day, one of the reasons why the police was very careful about letting any information out was simply because they did not want to ruin the future case. They wanted to make sure they had an airtight case that literally people can follow. People can get justice. The families can get justice. They did not want to make a mistake in this. But could this actually be something that could help him get exonerated? Leaving him free from the shadow of any possible arrest for the rest of his life tied to this? Is that DNA on his sheath enough? Is those phone pings enough? Because if he's tried, which he will be, he's already been charged with 4 counts. If he gets off and he's exonerated, they will never try him for the same crime again. That would lead to the perfect crime. But the perfect crime would not be to do this type of thing and escape justice, but to do it and use the justice system itself to truly get away with it. Because if he was exonerated, he gets away with this. Is that not a fair statement? We don't want anyone who is truly guilty of this to get away with it. Is that not a fair statement? And so one criminologist, he was responding to host Philip Schofield on This Morning News or something like that. And he was sharing that, he was responding to host Philip Schofield, who called the abandoning of this knife sheath a remarkably clumsy move, which a lot of people said that's amateur for that to be left behind, right? Wilson said, one of the things that really struck me about the person that's been arrested and accused of this is he is intelligent and high functioning. Now, he argued that DNA can be transferred from person to person and said he believes the defense may bring that up at trial. He says, I could have your DNA, Wilson said, speaking to This Morning's Holly Willoughby. Your DNA is on me. I could go wherever I wanted to go in the next hour, and your DNA would be where I go to. That's what he was sharing. So the defense is clearly going to present issues that will suggest that Kohberger is innocent. That's what the criminologist is sharing. That literally makes me feel like the right attorney, like the O.J. Simpson type of attorney, could get this guy off. Not everyone is convicted even when they're guilty. Sometimes a defense attorney is so good, they cast doubt in the jury. Right? And so that is so key that we understand that as well. As for his cell phone pings, which put him in the Moscow area on the date of the killings and in the weeks beforehand, Wilson offered an explanation for that as well. He said, Moscow isn't so far away from Washington State University, so it would be natural that there will be some of those towers that might ping. I've literally thought of that as well. Like a tower from miles away from my home could have me pinging. That happened to one of my agents where he's like, I'm getting this notice of this and like it's way down there and I know I have not been down there. He said someone, did something, was logging in. I don't even remember the story, but it wasn't at his nearest tower. And so he said Moscow isn't so far away from Washington State University, right? So it would be natural that there would be some of those towers that might ping. That is definitely a way to try to get out of it, to debunk that and cast doubt. There are just 8 miles between Washington State University's campus in Pullman, where Kohberger studied, and Moscow, Idaho, where the incident took place. Wilson says there will be a defense. And during a recent episode of the Law and Crime Sidebar podcast, Chief Public Defender for Monroe County, Pennsylvania, Jason LaBar, said the evidence is not so clear-cut. Now, Jason LaBar, he was the public defender in the extradition hearing for Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania. And so the public defender's comments on the knife sheath, which was found next to one of the victims, he said, this is a touch or transfer DNA. That's how he shrugged it off. Like, this is touch or transfer DNA. He didn't do it. Which would mean that it could remain on the sheath for an indefinite period of time if undisturbed. And that's what LaBar said. And he also says that's one way of attacking that type of evidence that doesn't put him at the scene of the crime the night out. Just that he merely touched that sheath at some point in time. And LaBar, he also said police use telephone tower pings rather than GPS location to put him at the scene 12 times before the incidents. Wow. And he said if it was GPS location coordinates, you're talking down to a meter as to where Bryan Kohberger was at the time of these crimes. Whereas a cell phone tower ping is that you're within a radius of that tower up to 20 miles. Obviously, Mr. Kohberger lived within 10 miles of the University of Idaho, where these crimes were committed, so certainly he could ping at any moment in time near the actual crime. My friends, let me know your thought process on this. Is this making sense? Yeah, the pinging part I'm definitely buying into. Definitely buying into that. The DNA, he's the expert. So I have to kind of believe what he is sharing. Multiple people have also said, you can transfer DNA this way. I don't know how, but Bryan, he was arrested on December 30th in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, after this cross-country trip with his dad from Washington State University, where he is a PhD student, right? And so he's pulled over 2 times within 9 minutes, if that's true, alleged, right? But did they pull him over for a specific reason? Or were they both, you're just tailing too close to somebody? Because truth is, I would think that is something you could forget really fast. Like, hey, I didn't think I was, right? You're passing cars. You could feel like came up on them and, So I could see that being a reason why the police used that reason to pull him over. And so this guy is being charged with something extremely heinous. He has maintained his innocence ever since he was arrested. And so his lawyer in Pennsylvania also even said he's eager to be exonerated. We'll see, right? And so we don't really know much about this. Truth is, as we learn more, we continue to hear more. And of course, there's always going to be people giving their thoughts. Without a shadow of a doubt, there will always be. That is the truth. See, this criminologist, Pete Yachmetz, he said that he believed the criminology student may have been attempting to assert some dominance in this incident. And so he's even referred to him as an incel. And so which is short for involuntarily celibate, and is used to describe men who have trouble establishing any type of relationships with women in a romantic way. And so Pete, he said that, he may have been trying to assert some dominance with these women. They were women, right? Even though they were in college, they were 21 and 20. And so they were young ladies at least. And so the former FBI, he told New York Post the brutality of this incident. He said, I believe a continued stabbing of a victim indicates an uncomfortable rage and extreme anger. That's what he shared in this. He also says, I think he may have developed an incel complex. The murders may have been an effort to assert some type of dominance. That's what he has shared. And so we've heard that multiple times, right? Multiple people have said something along the lines of he may have had an incel complex, right? Literally, multiple forensic people, forensic psychologists, criminologists, former FBI profilers, different people have said that multiple times. Former classmates have spoken out about him and how he was a bullied overweight kid when he was young, and in some cases later on he was bullies to other people, and how he was off to the side when he was at a friend's wedding, and so it's like we are just going to keep learning more and more about this. Isn't that not a fair statement? And so I think this is extremely odd on a lot of this. I feel like they're going to need more. But if this guy was a criminologist major and he was studying to do something like this, then he definitely tried to cover his tracks. He definitely tried to be extra careful in this case. Is that not a fair statement? Right? I mean, that's almost a no-brainer if you ask me in some cases. And so, being that he was at Washington State University and he was part of their program, could this have given him access to database of police body cam videos and other campus security footage? That's what people are sharing, because he was part of the graduate program, which means you are studying to be a part of this inside and out. What we don't know is, what did he do in that lab? You know that they are doing everything they can at this time to find out more. Literally, there's no doubt in this. They are studying every class he was in. And literally, because they don't even know if he did any studies around this using their database of body cam footage, because there are 5 of them at 5 police departments, while there's another study that operates a live feed of the security footage from WSU campus. Wouldn't they know that they would see his car somewhere around there if he did monitor this stuff? And so now one person, a spokesman for the WSU, insisted that Kohberger never had access to any footage from the CSI lab. And so the CSI lab, which is called Complex Social Interaction Lab, it maintains a database of body cam footage from 5 police departments. And there's another study that operates a live feed. And so they're saying no way, no how this guy had access to any of that footage. The CSI lab does not include footage from the police department in nearby Moscow, Idaho. So they're saying no, he could not have had access. He could not. And so looking at this complex social interaction lab, it can be difficult to utilize body cam footage to better your agency. You can see kind of what all of this means. If he had access to this, improve officer decision making, and all those, work with companies to research police community interactions. So did he have access to all of this? Because he was in the first semester of a criminology PhD program. He just started this past semester, like August, September. And this happened a few months later. So he just moved there in June, got his apartment like June 9th, and then started class around August, September, whatever day that normally starts. And so he started in the PhD program at Washington State University when this occurred on November 13th as well. And again, this was in a home about 10 miles away. He even had a ticket near this home. It's hard for me to actually believe he's getting away with this thing at all. And so they're saying no, he did not have access. One person said, to be clear, Bryan Kohberger never had access to any footage from the Complex Social Interaction Lab at Washington State University. That's what Phil Wheeler, the vice president of marketing and communications of WSU, that's what he told, that's what he shared about Kohberger and having access. He says, access to that facility is strictly controlled. All research assistants must complete a background check and FBI Criminal Justice Information Services Level 2 certification, be fingerprinted by the FBI, and sign a confidentiality agreement in order to enter the facility. And so they must be telling us that no, he did none of that to have access. Because we would know if he did that. We may not know right away that this statement comes out, but we will know over time if this is true. But some experts are saying he had to have access to it because he was part of their PhD program. Why wouldn't he have access to that? But one insider claimed that multiple individuals who have not gone through the vetting or training had access to the facility as part of their duties, including technical support staff. So that's very interesting on its own. And so I think over time we're going to continue to learn out a lot more. Right? And so they say no, he did not have access to this. What do you think? Do you think that is a fair statement? And then we're finding out that he might have been starting at a young age where he felt no emotion and felt little remorse in some comments that he made when he was 16 years old. And now some outlets are even referring to him as Idaho serial kill. And they're referring to him as a suspect, though. And they're saying that he made chilling online comments as a teenager, saying that he had no emotion and felt little remorse for his actions a decade before doing what he did on November 13th, 2023. Now, do you think, and this is, I'm just throwing this out there, November 13th. What 13 is synonymous, if I'm using that word right. It is well known in the creepy world. The Friday the 13th. There was another movie, 13 something. There's been a few movies around the bad luck number 13. Do you think that has anything to do with this? Do you think that somewhere Bryan Kohberger and that number 13 might have something to do with this? November 13th on a Sunday. It's chilling in every which way that you look at it, that the fact that he can even do this. Now we try to analyze why he would do this because we don't know a motive. And so right now, the only motive I can possibly even think of is the fact that he was studying to do this, to do and commit the perfect crime and to get away with it for the rest of his life. But in 2011, the then 16-year-old, he said in an online forum that he felt nothing when he looked at his family and his mind was blank. You see, that could have been a teenager being angry saying stuff. Because he has been described as by classmates as a chubby, awkward misfit. He wrote, "I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. Bullying will do that to you." And he said, "As I hug my family, I look into their faces, I see nothing. It is like I am looking at a video game, but less." That's what he said. Literally, that is what he said. And so the 28-year-old who is now facing this most heinous crime, who's maintaining his innocence, of course, they find you. He wrote this on a forum website, Tapatalk, about the neurological condition called visual snow, where vision is obscured by scattered dots. And he wrote that he saw himself as a sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man who was battling the constant thought of suicide and did not deserve to live. That's what was reported in the New York Times. He even added, "Nothing I do is enjoyable. I am blank. I have no opinion. I have no emotion. I have nothing." Can you relate? The suspect said his emotional apathy coincided with his visual snow symptoms, with a friend saying that he became neurotic about his vision. Like he was always bothered with it. You know? And so those are some creepy things to be saying, right? But truth is, we don't really know because, again, Pete Yachmetz, he claimed that this incident may have been motivated by an incel complex, which would add up to those forum posts, right? And that's exactly what Yachmetz is saying. I believe a continued stabbing of a victim indicates an uncomfortable rage, extreme anger. So he's saying that this guy was so angry, built up anger, and he lost it. So interesting and makes a lot of sense, unfortunately, doesn't it? Because truth is, we are going to only find out more. When, we don't know. But we're going to find out more. It's just a matter of time. But here's the thing, my friends. Here's the thing. If he is innocent, which I don't think he is, the affidavit to me spoke volumes by itself. It literally said enough for me to believe, okay, something's not right about this guy. Something's not right about how they tied him. It does not look good. But as I shared, and this video is more on the other side, right? What experts say could help get him off. You know, some are saying that he deliberately left that sheath behind, right? If he did that, what was the reasoning behind that? To work on giving him his alibi. Giving him his, like, I didn't leave that there. Someone transferred my DNA on that. I mean, my guess is that's what the experts are going to be saying. I could be completely off, but that's what I believe they're going to be saying. My friends, at the end of the day, this is not about me. This is about getting justice for Idaho 4. Bryan Kohberger right now stands accused. He will get his day in court. Right now, I don't think it looks good for him. But I do appreciate what these experts are saying. It helps you see both sides of the spectrum, right? My friends, at the end of the day, pray for these 4 kids that they get justice and that their parents and family can get justice and healing, because it is a long process. They're only getting started. Granted, even though a lot of momentum has died out about this story when it comes to all of this, because there's not much new developments, but people still want to know the process. So make sure you stay tuned. If this is the type of content you like to follow, hit that subscribe button. Click on that like if you got some value out of this, and hit that notification bell. That way you get notified whenever I go live. My friends, until next time, peace. Have a great day, my friends.